Hello. So finally, we are here again live. Our Thursday afternoon has become a regular appointment for us. And as last week, we have a special guest with us today. And today I have with me Vittorio Bartolini. I will let him introduce himself, but let's just say that he can help us a lot with all of those tricky things that we really need to learn to be able to speak English fluently. Vittorio, what can you tell us? What can you help us with?
Yeah, so hello everybody. So I've been teaching learning strategies since 2012. So it's been a long time now. And I think I can help you a lot because first of all, I have a personal experience in learning English as a second language because I started studying English in 2015 after a long time of frustration. Even if I was a teacher in learning strategies, mind maps, memory techniques, I always struggled with English because it's not just a matter of studying techniques, but it's also a matter of strategy. So what I can definitely help you with is knowing more about how studying works, how memory works, how learning a language works in the best way possible. Let's say that.
Nice. I can't wait to hear more. So the first thing I want to talk about is, so a lot of students who are approaching English study struggle a little bit with the idea of having to memorize a lot of words, a lot of vocabulary, a lot of prepositions. There's just many things that we need to really learn to be able to start speaking fluently. Yes. And do you have some suggestions for us in this matter?
Yes. I mean, memory is one of the aspects of the learning method that I think matters the most when it comes to how impactful the techniques that you are using are. Because many people, just use repetition, reading many times, repeating out loud something to remember it, but it's just not the best way because our memory works in a very specific way. And if you understand how it works, you can take advantage of these characteristics to memorize better. So for instance, you have to know that our memory works the same, even if every person is different and we have, different cognitive styles and many other personal characteristics. There are a few characteristics that our memory have, no matter who you are, no matter your age, where you're from. So, for example, the first characteristic is that our memory is visual. So we remember images better than everything else. An image is way easier to remember. Like if I say the word, Colosseum, the first thing that comes to your mind is not a wall with the writing Colosseum, but it's the image of the monument, right? Because we think better with images, we remember better images. That's also the reason why sometimes you introduce yourself with a few people, and after, a couple hours, you forget the names of these people, but you remember the face, because the face is an image, while the name is an abstract information, and so you forget it easily. So the first aspect to remember, to improve your memory abilities, is to take advantage of your visual memory. Second aspect is that our memory works better with associations. So every memory that you create is connected to something else. Like if it looks like, an easy way to explain this is like a lot of links of the same chain. So if you're able to recall to your mind the first link, then you're able to remember all the links connected to the first one. So second aspect is association. And the third one, the most important, I think, is that our memory is emotional. So if you live an emotion, let's say any kind of emotion, let's say that, the thing that you are doing in that moment or that is happening in that moment, you will remember it way better. Like if I ask you, what did you eat a month ago for dinner, for example, you wouldn't remember it, I hope, unless you eat the same thing every night. But if a month ago you were out for dinner with your favorite actor, or maybe, singer, or maybe, athlete or something, you would remember that dinner better because you would have felt a strong emotion in that moment, right?
Of course.
So the first thing you have to remember if you want to memorize and remember better words, preposition, and all the different information you have to to learn at the beginning is that you have to take advantage of these three characteristics: visual, associative, and emotional memory. And that's why repetition doesn't work. Because when you repeat something many times, or you read it, or you write it down many times, you are not using images, you're not using association, you're not creating associations, and you're not using, definitely not using emotions. Beside, I don't know, boredom. Anger and frustration, because you don't remember. So it's very helpful to dive into this topic. So to learn more about memory techniques, images associations. There are, online, you can find many resources about this. You can find many websites talking about how to take advantage of memory techniques, and they call it mnemonics, to remember better. There are even apps that you can use on your phone to memorize better words with these strategies. Like, I don't know if I can say the name, but there's an app called Memrise. It's written MEMRI, I think SE, Memrise.
Yes, I think I've seen that app.
Right. So that's very, very helpful, because it's based on images, and they give you an idea of the images you can use to create these associations. So it makes it even faster to memorize them.
So let me ask you something. So for the English courses that we are planning to start for teachers at Europass Teacher Academy, what we will do, and what we are doing right now, actually, we are going to launch the courses in January. But what we are doing right now, all the English teacher team at Europass, is that we are creating video materials for the explanation of grammar rules and expressions, and, for example, the modal verbs or the phrasal verbs. So we are creating a visual material, we are creating a video, and we are hoping that teachers can take most advantage of this material by being able to use it at their own pace and in their own time, and then use the classroom time more for interaction, because what we want in the end is to improve fluency and to improve confidence in being able to exchange opinion and expressing opinion. So what do you think about this? What do you think about moving the explanation part or the grammar part out of the lesson rather than inside the lesson as traditionally is done?
Yes. Now, short answer, I think it's the best way to organize it. But
I like the short answer, but if you want to make it longer.
Short answer, great job. But if I have to say more about this, I mean, it's not just about how our memory works now. Now we are talking about teaching and the best way to create an impactful learning experience for your students. I mean, they are teachers, but in this case, they are going to be students for the course, right? So when it comes to teaching and learning, we have to take into consideration. I can hear a little bit of return on my audio. I mean, I think it's my voice.
I can hear you well.
Perfect. Awesome. So never mind. So I was saying, you have to take into consideration first how our learning process works. So using, for example, videos and interactive materials. Even if you look at if you watch the videos on demand, but using videos with slides, images, visual learning, it's helpful, of course, for the student. But what I like the most about this way of organizing the course is that you are using the time together during classroom time to create dialogues and interaction. So this is a super important aspect in learning, because every person has different, they call it cognitive styles, which means that it's a little bit technical and complicated, but to make it simple, it just means that your brain likes better some ways of teaching than others, and it's not the same for everybody. So this is usually a big problem for a teacher, because you have 20 students, all of them are different, but you're one and you are teaching in one lesson. So you have to find a way that works for everybody. That's very demanding for a teacher, especially if you don't know how these cognitive styles are coming into place during the learning process and how to improve your teaching style, including many cognitive styles.
Okay.
So the way you organize the course, it's very helpful because giving the material to study with the content, like the grammar explanation, the modal verbs, the if clauses, and so forth. You study it by yourself with the video. If you need to, you take notes. You can look up on the internet something that you didn't understand. You do the studying work by yourself, and you get to the classroom more prepared. And then during the discussion, when you have the opportunity to ask questions, to do exercises, to do examples together, to do, maybe even dialogues, since it's learning a language, what we are talking about, you can create little conversations with a feedback from the teacher as far as grammar, vocabulary, pronunciation. So using all these interactive moments during classroom times becomes more helpful for the students, because no matter what your cognitive styles are, probably you're going to take advantage of those during an interactive moment better than with a traditional lesson where you teach and you talk and I'm just listening and writing. And maybe it's not the best way for me. It doesn't work for me because I would love the experience more.
Of course.
So, I hope it's clear enough.
Yes, it is. It's very clear. And another thing that I wanted to ask you is, based on your experience, both with students, but also your own experience in learning English and in learning a second language, what do you think is the thing that students should concentrate first on? Like, if you were an elementary level student and you have decided that 2021 is the year you're going to improve your English and you're going to make it better and you're going to make it more fluent, where would you start from? Where would you start learning?
Okay, so I would say that if you start from an elementary level or you start from zero, let's say that, you have never studied English before, or, you just started out, I think you have to take, again, into consideration a few variables. So first of all, your studying style and your learning tools and procedures that it's one aspect that is important. The tools that you have in your I don't know how you call it, in your
toolbox.
Yeah, in your toolbox. Yes, English is simple. So the first thing would be that, and I would consider also as a variable the origins of the student, because if you come from Italy, for example, is different than if you come from Germany or Spain, or let's say in general, if you come from a Latin language, it's different than you come from a Germanic rooted language. Let's say that, because when you start studying English, there are a few elements of the language you have to learn. You have to study vocabulary, you have to study basic grammar rules at least, and you have to study phonetics, so the pronunciation. I love the study of pronunciation because it made a huge difference for me, and that was my breakthrough in studying English, understanding how important it is to study the sound of the vowels, diphthongs, the minimal pairs, because that improved a lot my ability to understand when I was listening and to be understood when I was talking. So let's consider these three elements: grammar, vocabulary, and phonetics, so the pronunciation. I would concentrate on all of them, but with a different focus and a different time investment. So definitely, if you start from scratch, you need some vocabulary. But both for vocabulary and grammar, I would remember the so-called Pareto principle, so the 80-20 principle.
Okay.
So for example, you know better than me that if you are a native speaker and you talk and you speak perfect English, you still don't know the 100% of the dictionary and you don't know the 100% of the grammar. So there are, let's say, 20% resources that allow you to achieve the 80% of the results. So for vocabulary and grammar, I would focus at the beginning on those topics and those words that will allow you to hold the most of the conversations. So like studying a list of words that are, that are picked among those most frequently used is a smart idea, in my opinion. And same goes with grammar. So many people have they believe they have to know perfectly grammar before starting, before you start speaking the language. But actually, you just need to focus on some main topics, like, the main verbal conjugations, like present simple, past simple, present continuous, past continuous, present perfect. Even just those, if you understand how to conjugate and how to use them, it's enough to start. And then I would focus, of course, on pronunciation, at least a little bit on those sounds that are, can completely change the meaning of the word that you're saying. Because there are, if you come from Italian, like in my my example, you have a few sounds of English that you don't have in Italian. So you have to learn those from zero, learning the movement and all. And if you don't do that, if you don't study that, it can happen that you say something meaning
something else,
one word, but something else comes out of your mouth.
Of course. I also think that it's really hard for Italians to wrap their head around this, because we are so used to a language that is pronounced exactly how it's written. I mean, after we've learned those few, like the sh and the y, but then
that's it.
That's it. And you just have to learn it once. And when you got it, then every time you encounter those letter combination, you already know how to pronounce it. In English, it's not that easy, unfortunately. There are some sounds that the same sound is not always represented by the same spelling.
Right.
And so it can be confusing, and it takes some time to wrap your head around this. Yeah. But also what you were saying about the grammar, I think it's very interesting. And personally, I've always put it in practice in my English lessons. For example, I never got to the point where I had to explain, past perfect continuous. I'm sure that past perfect continuous has a role in life, but I don't think that for someone who is trying to improve, and I don't think that their energy is best spent and best invested in learning very, very well how to use past perfect continuous. And also in organizing the curriculum for the Europass courses that will start in January, 12, 13, and 14 of January, we have tried to adopt the same principle. So, for example, also the grammar subjects that we are facing and that we are creating material for, they are always in an idea of something that can be useful to you right away. And when we have done like the main verbs with levels, then we've moved to functions. So how to confront opinions, or how to ask for explanation, or we have these type of subjects, and we don't go that deep into grammar, because once you have the basic verbs down, and your adjectives and your prepositions and your adverbs, just finding like more and more complicated grammar structure, it doesn't do you any good if then you have trouble finding vocabulary for everyday language. So I'd rather, once we get to a certain point in grammar, I'd rather just leave the grammar alone and just focus on improving fluency, improving vocabulary, and getting people to talk and get them more confident in their exposition and in their exchanges. I really think that in a regular English course that someone does to improve, that we should really scale down a little bit on the level of the grammar that we are teaching, and focus more on other things that really help us to be more fluent.
Yes, you're giving me many input. I mean, I would love to say a few things about what you just said, because I think
Go
important.
ahead.
So first thing, I think that what you're saying is very helpful in understanding what the role of a teacher of an English course is nowadays. Because English is a very common, topic and subject that people are looking up in the internet and writing books about, and there are many, many courses. So one of the problems as a student when you are about to study English and to learn it is to understand what are the very reliable information and the reliable teachers out there. And so the role of a teacher and of a course, like you're saying, is also to help you in finding your way among all these materials and all these different ways of organizing the studying of the subject. So it's very helpful to have someone, like you just said, that selected for you where to start, where to go then when you are a master in that, and that guides you between grammar and words and conversation practice. And to be very precise when it comes to picking the right strategy and what to study first and then afterwards, it would be great to have an understanding of the cognitive styles, because I told you it's a way that your brain likes more to work. So for example, there is a pair of cognitive styles that is called field dependent and field independent. So for instance, if you are a field dependent learner, it means that you understand a concept better if it's put into a context. While if you are a field independent student, it means that you can understand easily that concept even outside a context or without many connections to the context. So for example, it's been studied that if you are a field dependent learner, it's better to take a look to the rules first, to the grammar, to the context before you put yourself in a conversation situation or in a practice situation. While if you are an independent field learner, it doesn't matter. You can start with conversation, you can start with studying the theoretical part, it doesn't matter. But of course, this is just one of the many cognitive styles that you have. So it would be better to know all of them and use the combination of them. But the way you organize the lessons with the material at home to study and then the practical part together with the teacher, it's the best way to just take advantage of all the different students you can have in your classroom. And the last thing is, it makes sense, as you said, to focus on the most basic thing first, even because if you study the more complex grammar rules before you start using the language, it's way harder for you to understand it. It's like if you are learning how to I don't know, how to fly a plane, how to pilot a plane. You sit on the chair for the first time, you have this super complex console with many buttons and tools and things that you can push, and you don't understand. So if that's the first thing you do, studying all these complex information, and it's it's very overwhelming. You don't understand it. It's too much. But if you study the basics first, and then you accumulate some flight time, some on the plane, learning how to do it, living that experience, and then you go back to studying the theory of those complex information, it makes it easier for you. So the same is with the language. You study the basics, then you do some practice. You do some conversation, maybe guided by a teacher, that would be even better. And then you go back in studying the grammar rules, the theory, and it's going to make more sense for you. That's my experience, at least. And it's also how our brain works.
Of course, I agree with you. And especially, it's sometimes I really think that you pointed out a very important issue, which is, what is the value today in 2020 when everything is online and I can find anything online, but the value of having a teacher guiding you and providing you with a regular feedback and with a guideline on which direction to move and where to focus and where to concentrate and how to move, I think it really makes a difference in a learning path. And you don't need an English course to learn present perfect.
You need Google.
The world is your oyster. Internet is, everyone has Google, but having someone that has determined a path, and we are currently 4 English teachers working on this project, and we are all teachers that have been teaching English for many, many years. Also, some of my colleagues who are much more skilled and experienced than me. I have been teaching now for 8 years, but some colleagues who are working on this course with me. And I think in the next week, we are going to be all together and talk more about what we are doing with this course. But they have been teacher trainers for English teachers for many, many years, and they have plenty of experience on what is best for students and how to really maximize and give them the attention that they need, and all the instruments that we have collected over the years. We already know what your questions are going to be. We already know what difficulties you're going to encounter, or at least a big part of it. And that makes a big difference in reaching the goal faster and better and going more straight to the point.
Yes, and don't forget another very important aspect of having a teacher, which is let's call it the motivational part of having a professional that is helping you along your path. Because, learning a language is not just a technical matter, it's not just a studying method thing, but it's also about your, let's call it, emotional experience, because it's a pretty complex subject. And even if you have the right tools, if you have the right materials and teacher, it's still a pretty hard thing to achieve, to get to fluency, right? So there are going to be moments where you will be frustrated. There are definitely going to be moments where you will be not very motivated in studying. And, having a strong motivation, it's definitely super important, coming from inside, of course, but at the same time, having a good teacher that is taking care of you, that is following you, that is helping you along the path, it's a very, very important thing to remember. Even because, at the end of the day, what makes a course or an experience like the course, more effective than studying by yourself on Google, for instance, is that you create a path that is perfect for me, for my starting point, for my characteristics, for my personality, for my goals. So it still makes sense to have a teacher. It still makes sense to take a course, in my opinion. If someone is asking himself, is it worth it? Yes.
Yes, also in my opinion.
It does.
Okay, Vittorio, so thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
I think you gave us some interesting tips, and I'm sure we will keep them in mind while we are creating our materials, because that's what we really want, to make something that can help teachers all over Europe, the teachers that have been following Europass in the last years, to really give them that little bit more confidence that they need to then come and follow our teacher training courses all over Europe and really take fully advantage of the experience and being able to share their experience with the other teachers that have come there to meet with them. And that is really our end goal. It's to make everyone, to empower everyone to be able to share their experience and come meet us in the Europass Teacher Training Academy all over Europe and have the best time that they possibly can. So thank you again, Vittorio, for being with us. For the teachers listening, I remember that the Europass English for Teachers courses will start 12, 13, and 14 of January, but you can already enroll with a special discount, and you can check the link here on this video. Thank you very much for watching. Thank you for being with us. And thank you, Vittorio, for spending some time with us.
Thank you for having me. Have a great day.
You too. Bye-bye.